Okay, so you know how we're always glued to our phones and computers these days, right? Typing everything. Sometimes I even catch myself voice texting a quick grocery list. It's just so easy.
Oh, absolutely. It's hard to imagine life without those digital tools. It really feels like everything's gone digital.
Yeah, exactly. But, with all that, it's kind of easy to assume that, well, handwriting might be going the way of the dodo. Like, who needs to actually write by hand anymore?
Yeah, that's a pretty common thought, I think. Especially with kids growing up surrounded by keyboards and touchscreens.
Right. But here's the thing. We're actually diving into some research today that's, well, it's kind of surprising. It suggests that handwriting is still hugely important, like really important in education, work, even just our daily lives.
It is surprising, right?
I
And the research we're looking at today, it's pretty robust. It's a meta-analysis, which means they've analyzed data from tons of individual studies. It gives us a much bigger, clearer picture than any single study could.
Exactly. And this particular meta-analysis was done by Santangelo and Graham back in 2016, and their focus, handwriting instruction and its impact. Now, for you, our listener, we want to break down the key takeaways from all this
Yeah,
research.
definitely. Because sifting through a huge meta-analysis can be, well, a little daunting. We're going to distill it down. No jargon, just the good stuff.
Absolutely. So think of us as your guides through this fascinating world of handwriting research. And our goal is to give you a clear understanding of what the science actually says about teaching handwriting, why it matters, and, well, some of the surprising things they found along the way.
And one thing that makes a meta-analysis so powerful is that it combines all those findings from lots of different studies, like way more reliable than just looking at one study in isolation.
It's like imagine trying to understand a giant elephant by just feeling its tail. A meta-analysis is like being able to see the whole elephant, getting the complete picture.
Exactly. It gives us a much more comprehensive view.
So, the foundation for our conversation today is a comprehensive meta analysis of handwriting instruction by Tanya Santangelo and Steve Graham, published back in 2016. All right, let's jump right in. First, big question. Why does handwriting even matter in this digital age? Seriously, with all the tech we have.
Yeah, you would think it's becoming obsolete, right?
Yeah.
But Santangelo and Graham actually highlight how it's still super common. We use it for quick notes at home, jotting down ideas at work, brainstorming, and crucially, it dominates writing in K-12 schools.
And they cite a bunch of studies from that period, too. Cutler and Graham in 2008, Gilbert and Graham in 2010, Graham and others in 2014, Kiyohara and others in 2009, all pointing to the same thing. Handwriting is still very present in our lives, so it's not just some nostalgic thing, it's actually something we're all still doing.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things they talk about is something called the presentation effect.
Oh, yeah, this is cool. Basically, it means that how readable your handwriting is can actually influence how people judge what you've written, like the quality of your ideas.
Exactly. Like if your handwriting is a struggle to read, people might actually grade your work more harshly, even if the ideas themselves are really good.
Wow, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? It's like, even if you have amazing thoughts, if people can't read them easily, they might not give them the credit they deserve.
Right. And Santangelo and Graham point to an earlier study by Graham and others from 2011 that showed just that. They also mentioned Scannell and Marshall from way back in 1966 who found a similar effect. It's been known for a while.
So it's not just about neatness, it's actually about getting your ideas across effectively. It's like
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to watch a movie with terrible picture quality, even if the story was amazing.
That's a great analogy. The picture quality of your handwriting really does matter. And it's not just about first impressions either. If someone's struggling to decipher your writing, they might miss some of your points or just get frustrated. That can definitely color how they see your ideas overall.
So good handwriting can actually help your ideas shine through. It's like a window to your thoughts. Okay, but what about the writer themselves? They also talk about the writer effect, right? How the actual act of writing affects the writer.
Absolutely. The writer effect is all about how the mechanics of handwriting can impact the whole writing process. Like if your handwriting is slow and laborious, it eats up a lot of mental energy, and that's energy you need for thinking about your ideas, planning your writing, and making it better overall.
It's like trying to run a marathon while carrying a heavy backpack, right?
Sorry,
You're going to get tired way fast.
exactly. And Santangelo and Graham reference research from Berninger in 1999 and Graham and Harris in 2000 that shows just that. When you're struggling to form the letters, your brain is so focused on that physical act that it has less room for the higher level thinking involved in writing.
And they use that great analogy about the Chinese typewriter, right?
Yeah. With so many characters to choose from, typing was super slow and difficult. People would lose their train of thought because they were so focused on finding the right character.
It's like you're trying to have a deep conversation, but you're constantly tripping over your own words. It just makes it harder to express yourself clearly.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And this brings up another common misconception, that handwriting doesn't really matter once kids get to middle school or high school.
Yeah, like once they're typing more, who cares about their handwriting?
But Santangelo and Graham point to research that shows that's not really true. Handwriting fluency, like how easily and quickly someone can write, still significantly affects writing quality even in upper elementary grades.
They cite Graham and others from 1997 for that one. So even though kids are using keyboards more and more, their handwriting skills are still developing and still influencing their overall writing.
Right, it's not like it just suddenly becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
And here's another surprise. Handwriting speed keeps increasing until at least ninth grade.
Oh, wow. So they're getting faster even in those later years. They cite Graham and others again for this, but from 1998, it's not something I would have guessed. And what about kids who really struggle with handwriting? Are there any long-term effects?
Unfortunately, yes. Research has shown that kids who have a really tough time with handwriting might start avoiding writing altogether. They can develop a negative mindset about their writing ability, which can really hold them back throughout their education and even later in life.
That makes sense. If it feels like pulling teeth every time you try to write something, you're probably going to try to avoid it as much as possible.
Exactly. And this isn't a small problem either. Research suggests that somewhere between 12% and 44% of elementary school kids experience some kind of difficulty with handwriting.
Wow, that's a pretty significant chunk of kids. And they cite Graham and Weintraub from 1996 for that one. And they also point out that boys tend to be at greater risk for handwriting difficulties. So this isn't just a minor inconvenience for a few kids, it's actually a pretty widespread issue. And all of this connects back to this idea of the simple view of writing. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. The simple view of writing is basically a model that helps us understand how writing works. It says that becoming a good writer depends on two main things. First, you need to be able to generate text, like come up with ideas and put them into words. And second, you need to be good at transcription, which includes things like handwriting, typing, and spelling.
So it's like having a great story to tell and then actually being able to write it down clearly. Both parts are important.
Right. And according to this model, which is supported by research from Berninger and others in 2002, those transcription skills, especially handwriting, are super foundational, especially in those early stages of learning to write.
Makes sense. If you're spending all your energy just trying to form the letters, you're not going to have much left for actually crafting a good piece of writing.
Exactly. It's like trying to build a house without a solid foundation. It's just not going to be as strong or stable.
So if handwriting is such a key building block, then teaching it well should have a positive ripple effect, right?
That's what Santangelo and Graham wanted to find out. And one of their main questions was, does teaching handwriting actually lead to improvements in legibility and fluency?
In other words, can we actually teach kids to write better by hand?
And their findings were pretty clear. When they compared teaching handwriting to not teaching it or teaching something else instead, they found statistically significant improvements in both legibility and fluency.
So it's not just something that kids pick up on their own. Direct instruction actually makes a difference.
Exactly. For legibility, they found an effect size of 0.59, and for fluency, it was 0.63. And just to remind you, those effect sizes, they're a way of measuring how big of an impact something has. Larger effect sizes mean a bigger impact. So those are pretty decent effect sizes.
It really backs up the idea that handwriting is taught, not caught, as they say. It needs to be explicitly taught, not just absorbed through osmosis. And it's not just about the handwriting itself getting better. They also looked at how handwriting instruction impacts overall writing performance, right?
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. They found that teaching handwriting led to significant improvements in the overall quality of students' writing, like how well they expressed their ideas, how organized their writing was, things like that. The effect size for this was a pretty impressive 0.84.
That's huge. So it's not just about neatness, it's actually about becoming a better writer overall. And they also found that kids wrote more when they had good handwriting skills. The effect size for this was even bigger, 1.33.
That's a significant jump. It suggests that when kids are comfortable with handwriting, they're more willing to put their thoughts down on paper and write more extensively.
And it makes sense, right? If writing feels easy and fluid, you're more likely to do it and do more of it. And they also saw improvements in overall writing fluency with an effect size of 0.48. So it's not just about handwriting fluency, it's about writing fluency in general.
Exactly. When handwriting becomes more automatic, it frees up mental space for all those other aspects of writing, like generating ideas, organizing thoughts, and finding the right words.
Now, there's a common belief that good handwriting is all about fine motor skills, those tiny muscles in your hands that allow you to make precise movements. But this meta-analysis, it kind of challenges that assumption, doesn't it?
Yeah, this was one of the more surprising findings. They found that interventions that focused only on improving fine motor skills, like doing those little puzzles or using tweezers to pick up tiny objects, didn't actually lead to better handwriting.
So all those activities that parents and teachers often use to help kids develop fine motor skills, they might not be as effective for handwriting as we thought.
The research suggests that while fine motor skills are definitely involved in handwriting, they might not be the key driver of improvement. The effect sizes for these motor interventions were pretty small, 0.10 for legibility and even a negative zero point zero 0.07 for fluency, and neither of those were statistically significant.
That's fascinating. So directly teaching handwriting, focusing on the letters themselves and how to form them, that seems to be more effective than just working on general fine motor skills.
Exactly. And when they compared directly teaching motor skills to directly teaching handwriting, they found that, well, handwriting instruction tended to lead to greater gains, although, to be fair, the differences weren't always statistically significant in every comparison.
But the trend was there, right? It seems like directly teaching handwriting is the way to go. And this reminds me of something Abbott and Berninger said, which the researchers quoted in their paper. They said, and I'm quoting here, handwriting is fundamentally a linguistic act producing the alphabet symbols on the motor channel, end quote.
That's a really insightful way to put it. It highlights that handwriting isn't just about making shapes with your hand. It's about connecting those shapes to the letters they represent and using them to express language.
It's about translating thoughts into written symbols. Okay, so we know that directly teaching handwriting is important, but what about specific teaching methods? Did any particular methods stand out in the meta-analysis as being especially effective?
Yeah, there were some interesting findings about different instructional approaches. One method that showed strong results was individualized instruction, where teaching is tailored to each student's specific needs and challenges.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about figuring out what each kid needs and adapting the instruction accordingly.
Right. And individualized instruction showed statistically significant improvements in legibility with an effect size of 0.69. That's a pretty solid effect size.
So it really seems to make a difference to meet kids where they are and provide them with the specific support they need. And did they find anything about using technology in handwriting instruction?
This was actually one of the more surprising findings. They found that using technology as part of handwriting instruction led to statistically significant improvements in legibility. The effect size for this was a pretty impressive 0.85.
Wow, that's really interesting. It seems counterintuitive, using technology to improve handwriting. What kind of technology are we talking about here?
In the studies they looked at, they used things like digitizing tablets, which allow kids to trace or copy letters digitally. Some programs even provide immediate feedback, like showing kids if they're forming the letters correctly.
It's like having a virtual handwriting coach right there with you. And that immediate feedback, that can be really powerful, especially for kids who are still learning the ropes. Okay, now I have to ask about one specific program that's super popular, handwriting without tears. What did the meta-analysis find about its effectiveness?
Well, this was another surprise, actually. Despite being widely used, the meta-analysis didn't find a statistically significant impact of the Handwriting Without Tears program on either legibility or fluency. The effect sizes were pretty small, which suggests it might not be as effective as some people believe.
That's definitely a bit of a curveball. It just goes to show that popularity doesn't always equal effectiveness. It's important to look at the research evidence.
Absolutely. And they also looked at other methods, like teaching letter formation with motion models, where kids are shown how the letters are formed with specific movements. This showed a positive trend for legibility, but it wasn't statistically significant.
So it might be helpful, but more research is needed. What about self-evaluation, where kids look at their own handwriting and try to assess it?
That also showed a positive trend for legibility, but again, not statistically significant in this meta-analysis.
So some promising possibilities, but more research is needed to really know for sure. What about multisensory instruction? That's a pretty popular approach, right? Using different senses like touch and sound to help kids learn?
Yeah, but surprisingly, multisensory handwriting instruction didn't show a statistically significant impact on legibility in this meta-analysis. The effect size was tiny.
So, another one that needs more research. What about something as simple as copying letters?
Copying letters, either from a model or from memory, did show a positive trend for legibility, but again, not statistically significant in this analysis. It suggests that even simple practice like copying can be beneficial, though.
Makes sense. Practice makes perfect, as they say. Did they find anything else that seemed to make a difference in how effective handwriting instruction was?
Yeah, one factor that seemed to matter was the amount of instructional time. They found that more time spent on handwriting instruction, specifically 10 hours or more compared to less than 8 hours, was linked to greater improvements in legibility.
Makes sense. More time focused on practicing and getting feedback. That should lead to better results. What about the age and skill level of the students? Did that play a role in how effective the instruction was?
It did. They found that older students, those in 5th grade and up, showed bigger gains in handwriting fluency from instruction than younger students in 4th grade and below.
So, as kids get older and have a better grasp of the basics, they're able to improve their speed and fluency more easily.
Exactly. And they also found that students who already had pretty good handwriting skills tended to see bigger fluency gains from instruction compared to students who were really struggling with handwriting. So it seems like having a solid foundation to build on is really important.
That makes sense. If you're still struggling with forming the letters correctly, it's going to be harder to focus on writing quickly and smoothly. Now, as with any research, it's important to consider the quality of the studies that were included in this meta-analysis. Did Santangelo and Graham address that?
They did. They acknowledged that the quality of the studies varied, and there were some limitations in certain areas, like in some
Mhm.
studies, it wasn't clear if the teaching methods were used consistently across different classrooms, which could have influenced the results.
Right, like if one teacher is really enthusiastic about a particular method and another teacher is just going through the motions, that could affect how well the kids learn.
Exactly. And they also pointed out that it's hard to completely account for the influence of different teachers. Some teachers are just naturally better at teaching certain things, and that can be hard to measure and control for in a research study.
So it's important to keep those limitations in mind. But even with those limitations, this meta-analysis gives us a lot of valuable insights into the importance of handwriting and how to teach it effectively.
Absolutely. It provides a strong foundation for making informed decisions about handwriting instruction.
Okay, let's bring it all together for you, our listener. What are the key takeaways from this deep dive into Santangelo and Graham's research? What should you be thinking about after listening to all of this?
Well, the main takeaway is that explicit handwriting instruction, meaning directly teaching kids how to form the letters and write fluently, it really does work. It leads to improvements not only in handwriting itself, but also in overall writing skills.
It's not just about making pretty letters, it's about giving kids the tools they need to become better communicators and thinkers.
Exactly. And one of the most surprising findings was that focusing solely on fine motor skills training, it's not enough. It doesn't seem to be as effective as directly teaching handwriting.
So maybe we need to rethink some of those common practices that focus mainly on fine motor skills. And that connection between handwriting and overall writing abilities, that's a real aha moment, I think. It shows how seemingly basic skills can have a huge impact on learning and development.
It really does challenge some assumptions we might have about how learning works. It's not always linear or compartmentalized. Skills can be interconnected in surprising ways.
And this research might spark some new questions for you, our listener. Like, how can these findings be applied in your own classroom or home? Could you incorporate more individualized instruction or explore using technology in new ways to support handwriting development?
It's definitely worth thinking about how to apply these findings in your own context. And here's another thought-provoking question. If something as seemingly basic as handwriting can have such a powerful ripple effect on other skills, what other foundational skills might we be overlooking or underestimating?
That's a great question to ponder. What other hidden gems might be out there that could unlock even more learning potential? It's like this meta-analysis really opens up a whole new way of thinking about how we learn and how we teach.
It's a powerful reminder that even in our increasingly digital world, those foundational skills, those building blocks of learning, they still matter. They still have the power to shape how we think, learn, and communicate.
It's like in a world obsessed with the latest gadgets and apps, It's easy to forget the power of the simple things, the fundamentals. But this research really highlights that those fundamentals, they're not just stepping stones. They're essential for building a strong and lasting foundation for learning. And that's something worth remembering no matter what field you're in or what you're passionate about.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about those foundational skills. They're the key.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of handwriting research. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you've come away with some new insights and maybe even some new questions to explore.
My pleasure. It's always exciting to dig into research that challenges our assumptions and opens up new possibilities.
Until next time, keep those pens moving and those minds engaged.